Hello, everybody, and welcome to another installment of Monday Tsene with Pretoria Psychologists. My name is Ramosala, and today I will be speaking to you about the risk factors for anxiety amongst adults. Before we go into the actual risk factors, it's important to highlight that feelings of worry or feeling fearful in certain situations is quite common as we progress through adulthood. So with feelings of anxiety though, one can start becoming concerned when these feelings or these worries are disproportionate to the situation that we're finding ourselves in, or when they persist for too long and they start disrupting the manner in which we function in the different areas of our life, such as our working environment, our relationships with family, as well as just our own relationships that we have with ourselves. So going into the risk factors for anxiety, these risk factors can be put into different groups. So we can have individual factors that can contribute to being more vulnerable to anxiety in a later stage in life or in adulthood. And you can also have lifestyle factors that can contribute to one's vulnerability to anxiety. So in terms of the individual factors, one of these could be previous childhood trauma. So if one has been in a situation, a life-threatening situation, either in experiencing it or in witnessing it around them, this can lead to behaviors that are anxious in manner, right? So for example, a child who experienced living, or if in your childhood you experienced living in a disruptive home environment where you weren't always sure what's happening around you or your role in the home environment, that can lead to characteristics such as being hypervigilant in your adulthood, where you are suspicious of the world around you and where you are always being on the lookout as to how next you should be acting or what next to expect to happen around you. Another individual factor could be a family history of anxiety, where anxious behaviors becomes learned behavior. So where behaving in anxious ways becomes normalized and it becomes a part of the way you make sense of the world around you, or it becomes a part of the way you make sense of the type of thoughts you have, or even just how you process your thoughts. Another example of individual factors could be personality factors, or the certain types of personality characteristics that one has within them. So for example, people who identify as A-types, or people who are perfectionistic in the way that they do things, who are overly critical of themselves, or even on the other end of it, people who suffer from low self-esteem. These are all things that increase one's vulnerability to anxiety in their adulthood. So moving on to the second group of risk factors for anxiety in adulthood, these are your lifestyle factors. So factors that are lifestyle related that can increase your vulnerability to anxiety in adulthood. The first one being the actual concept of getting older. So as you progress developmentally and you become an adult, you start getting faced with adult problems, right? So things such as getting a new job, changing location, relocation, all of those become uncharted territory, which require a new skill set in terms of coping in those environments. So whenever you find yourself in a situation whereby you're having these changes happening in a quick and rapid manner, it also increases your vulnerability to having anxiety. A second one of these lifestyle factors is stress related. So your perception of stressful environments and also how you cope in those stressful environments. So this has to do with your coping mechanisms. So you'll find that people who rely on more negative coping strategies, such as maybe excessive substance use or avoidance of tasks completely, stuff like that could also increase one's vulnerability to anxiety in adulthood, right? And then a third one of these lifestyle factors is actually the relationships that we have. Relationships that we have with ourselves, as well as the relationships that we have with the world around us and the people around us. And especially now in the world of social media, where we actually have so much exposure to other people's lives, sometimes this can create feelings of pressure, and it sort of creates thoughts that would make one maybe think that they're not doing enough in their lives, or that they're doing too much in their lives. So it adds another element of being critical of the life that you're living or the relationships that you have. And also just carrying on with that notion of social media. With some people, the accessibility of social media has actually negatively impacted the actual relationship that they have with their families, right? Which in most cases form a safety net. And once that safety net is not there, that then also increases one's vulnerability to anxiety. Okay, so now that we know that one's vulnerability to anxiety in adulthood can be a combination of either individual as well as lifestyle factors, it's also important to know that these factors that I've identified or that I've highlighted are not an exhaustive list, meaning that one can have one or more of these factors, but that doesn't necessarily mean that one is considered to have an anxiety disorder. These are just to help us identify and navigate our thoughts and feelings of anxiousness, just to see if they are in proportion and applicable to the kinds of situations that we're finding ourselves in. Thank you guys once again for joining us on this episode of Monday Tsene. We look forward to meeting you guys again in the next episode. Goodbye.